He had always lived in a world made of glass and gold, a world where money solved every problem before he even knew it existed. But now, lying pale beneath dim hospital lights in his private mansion suite, Adrian Lockwood, one of the most powerful billionaires in the country, was suffocating under a truth money could not silence. His lungs were failing, his heart was weak, and the doctors whispered that he had months, maybe weeks. Perhaps days. He didn't care about the prognosis anymore. What terrified him was how easily a man with everything could leave the world with nothing. He watched the window where the sunset spilled golden across the marble floors. He wanted to cry, but powerful men were not raised for tears. He exhaled slowly, every breath like lifting a mountain, and turned his head just enough to see her. Isabella, the quiet maid who cleaned the corners no one else reached, the girl who moved through the mansion like a whisper, like gentleness had been shaped into a person. The world saw her as invisible, Adrian saw her as the only thing that still felt real anymore. She was small, soft-spoken, always tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear when she was nervous. She worked because life had pushed her too early into responsibility. And though she lived in the presence of unimaginable wealth, the girl had never asked for anything. Not even when the world had taken so much from her. He had watched her for months, not in a predatory way, but in quiet curiosity. She spoke to him differently from everyone else. She did not fear him, nor flatter him, nor scramble to win his approval like the world always had. Sometimes she even argued with him, politely but firmly, and he found himself waiting for those moments where her timid voice became unexpectedly brave. He found himself wondering what it would feel like to be held by someone who didn't want his money, didn't want his power, didn't want his name. Someone who saw him as human. As days blurred into each other and his illness grew crueler, those thoughts dragged him into shame. What kind of dying man wanted innocence near him? What kind of billionaire longed for a kindness he could never earn? He scolded himself every night, yet every morning when Isabella entered with fresh flowers, or opened the curtains, or whispered, "Good morning, sir," he felt a warmth that reminded him he was still alive. Tonight his breaths came uneven, heavy, and Isabella noticed. She rushed toward him, pulling her sleeves back to adjust his pillows. "Does your chest hurt again?" she asked. He nodded, unable to form a full sentence. She placed a hand gently on his shoulder and whispered, "I'm here." Those two words settled in his heart like a prayer. She helped him drink a bit of water, brushed his hair off his forehead, and when she turned to refill the humidifier, he spoke her name, barely a breath. "Isabella." She faced him again, eyes full of concern. "Yes," he swallowed, his throat trembling. "I need to ask you something. Something that I've never had the courage to say." Her expression softened instantly. "You can ask me anything." He wished she hadn't said that. He wished she had given him limits. He wished he didn't feel so desperate, so fragile, so unbearably human. But the truth inside him had reached its breaking point. He looked at her slowly, his voice raw. "I don't want to die with regrets." She moved closer. "No one does." He inhaled shakily. "I have lived my entire life surrounded by people. Hundreds. Thousands. Yet I've never once been held by someone who cared for me. Not without a price. Not without a motive. Not without something to gain." She hesitated, unsure where he was going. He wiped a tear that escaped down his cheek, embarrassed. "I'm dying, Isabella, and the world will remember me as a ruthless billionaire, a man who built empires and crushed competitors. But I don't want my last night to be lonely." Her breath hitched, understanding half of his confession but not the whole. He looked at her with an ache that had been waiting years to surface. "Isabella, I want you to spend one night with me." She froze. He quickly shook his head, terrified she misunderstood. "Not for what you're thinking. Not in that way. I'm not asking you to give yourself to me. I would never take advantage of you." His voice broke. "I asked because you're the only person who has ever shown me kindness without wanting anything in return. And I'm so afraid to die alone." Isabella's eyes glistened, her confusion dissolving into something softer, something painful. He continued in a whisper. "You're young. You're innocent. You deserve a life far from the suffering I've seen. But I haven't been held since I was a child. Not by anyone who meant it. Not by anyone who cared for me without expecting a reward." His fingers trembled against the blanket. I don't know what love feels like. I don't know what comfort feels like. And I don't want my last memory to be silence. She approached slowly, her steps hesitant. You want me to stay beside you tonight? He nodded. Just stay. Talk to me. Sit with me. Hold my hand if you can. I don't deserve even that, but it would mean more than you'll ever understand. Isabella's breath trembled. She took a moment before sitting on the edge of the bed. She placed her hand over his, warm and small, and said softly, "You should have told me earlier." He closed his eyes as a single tear escaped. "I was ashamed." "You shouldn't be. I'm asking too much of you." "No," she whispered, "you're asking for something human." She slid closer, gently lifting his upper body so he could rest against her shoulder. He breathed shakily, overwhelmed by the simple closeness. He felt her hand stroke his hair with such gentleness it almost hurt. "You're not alone," she whispered. "Not tonight. Not while I'm here." He let out a sound between a sob and a sigh. "Thank you, Isabella, thank you." His head rested in the crook of her neck, and she felt his trembling ease slowly. "Tell me," she murmured, "what scares you the most?" He hesitated. "That my life meant nothing. That I built so much and still ended up empty. That no one will mourn me for the man I was, only the money I leave behind." She shook her head. "You're not empty. You're human, Adrian. All humans make mistakes. All humans long for love. No one ever loved me." Her fingers brushed his cheek. "You don't know that. What do you think of me?" He whispered. "I think," she said gently, "that beneath everything, the power, the strength, the cold exterior, you're a man who never got the chance to be soft. You hid your heart because the world taught you softness is weakness. But it isn't. And tonight you finally allowed yourself to be vulnerable." He closed his eyes, absorbing every word. Her voice steadied. "And I'm not here because of your money. I'm here because you're dying and scared and no one deserves to face that alone." He felt a warmth spread through him. A warmth he had never known. A warmth he feared he would never know again. "Isabella," he whispered, "I wish I had met you when I still had time to become a better man." "You still can be." He laughed weakly. "I have weeks at most. Even one day of kindness can change who you are." He opened his eyes, looking up at her. "You make me feel like my life wasn't wasted." "It wasn't. I don't want tonight to end," he confessed. She leaned her forehead against his. "Then let's make it last." Hours passed. They talked about his childhood, about the loneliness that followed him through every mansion and boardroom, about the weight of success and the emptiness it carried. Isabella told him stories of her own. Quiet stories, fragile ones about dreams she never had time to chase. They laughed softly, cried quietly, and every moment felt like suspended time. At one point he whispered, "Why did you stay tonight?" She looked at him with eyes full of sincerity. "Because everyone deserves one night where they feel safe." He squeezed her hand weakly. "You've given me more than that." She lay beside him carefully so his breathing wasn't strained. He rested his head on her shoulder again, listening to her heartbeat, a sound that felt like forgiveness, like peace. Near midnight his breath grew softer, slower. "Isabella," he whispered, "yes, if I fall asleep, and I don't wake up, will you still stay for a while?" She swallowed a sob. "I'll stay as long as you want. For the first time in my life," he said faintly, "I'm not scared." She tightened her hold. "Just rest." He smiled. Tired, grateful. "Thank you for giving me one night where I wasn't alone." His eyes drifted shut, his breathing steady but fragile. She stroked his hair, tears falling silently onto the sheets, whispering prayers he would never hear. She stayed until dawn, because that was what he asked for. One night, and she gave him all of it.